4-week intensive. Welcome tonight. I am so glad that you are dropping in. Come on in. Welcome, everybody. We are excited about you being here tonight on the second installment of I Am Her, She Is Me. Tonight, we are talking about the Queen of Sheba, the Queen of Sheba, a woman of intellect, influence, and innovation. Come on in tonight. As you are coming in, I want to welcome you to Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all of the places tonight. So glad that you have decided to join me in this second installment, this second intensive session as we are talking about ancient women, four ancient women of color. Last week we started with Sephora, and this week we are with um, the Queen of Sheba. So, welcome as you are coming in. I want to give you an opportunity. Thank you so much. I want to acknowledge my TikTok students. Welcome. Hello, Deborah. Hello, everybody. So glad that you are here. Again, we are going to get started with our session tonight. Again, this is the second week of the 4-week intensive, second week of the 4-week intensive. The first night we talked about Sephora. We know her as the wife of Moses, but she has her own name and she did her own thing, and we are thankful that she took charge. You know, James Brown has this song that says it's a man's world, but it would not be anything without a woman or a girl. And that is certainly the case with Moses, whose very life depended on 5 women before he even got to his wife, before he even got to his wife Zipporah. So tonight, I just want to start again by letting you know that this is brought to you by the Preachers Academy. The Preachers Academy. Don't get thrown off by the word preacher, because it is open to all, but we do center women, and we do center specifically Black women. But the Preachers Academy, the goal of the Preachers Academy is to empower, inspire Black women through transformative courses that provide clarity for their calling, credence to their voices, and confidence to their core, transcending the negative effects of unhealthy and harmful theology to embrace unapologetically their God-given potential. And I am Dr. Sherry L. Jackson. I want to introduce myself properly to those, especially those who this may be your first time joining me. I want to let you know who I am. Hello, Nakia Lewis. So glad to see you in this space tonight. And to all of those, whether you are coming through Facebook, you are coming through TikTok or YouTube, I'm just so excited that you are here. Good evening, Pastor Bianca J. Richardson. So glad that you are here. So I am Dr. Sherry L. Jackson. I am in New Orleans, Louisiana. My day job is I am a hospice and palliative care chaplain. I am a community pastor, and I am also the chief academic officer of the Preachers Academy. This is the work that I do to help demystify the Bible, to help people to engage in life-giving theology rather than death dealing or harmful or toxic theology. I have a master's degree in divinity, a master's in divinity, and a doctor of divinity, a doctor of ministry. I'm sorry. And so the reason why I am here and the reason why I do this work is because of what harmful theology did for me, and what I see harmful theology do to countless women, especially to Black women. And so through Black history, I wanted to take a look at four ancient women of color, four ancient women of color, and to look at their stories and to see how their stories, what is it about their stories, what can we learn from their stories. So that's why we are here. 4 weeks. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Samaritan woman, and the final week will be the Syrophoenician woman. So again, welcome as you are coming in and as you are finding value. I ask that you like, share, you tag, you do all of those things, and bring people in to get some of this goodness. So tonight we're going to talk about the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba, no doubt you have heard her story. You have heard her story, you've read it, but there's really not a whole lot in the biblical text about her. We do find her story in 10, 1 Kings chapter 10, 1 through 10, and also from 2 Chronicles 9, 1 through 13. And even as you read this story, it seems like she's just put there, right? She just put there because the biblical writers are still trying to tell the story of Solomon. They're still trying to tell the story of Solomon, but there are some things that we can learn from the Queen of Sheba. Now notice that her name is not Sheba. She is the queen of, right? She is the ruler of a area called Sheba. And so I'm not going to read the biblical text. I want you to go back to read the biblical text, but we will talk about this story in depth, who she is, what she is, why she is, and what is it that we can learn from her story. So what we need to know about her is that she ruled over a very wealthy kingdom. She ruled over a very wealthy kingdom. Now, there is I just need to say this in all honesty, that many scholars, many people believe that she was not a real person, but that her whole story is folklore. So I need to be honest to say that, right? But even if it is, even if she's not a real person, right? There are still some things that that this story can help us with in this 21st century. There are still some things that she can teach us in this 21st century. So she is a ruler of a very wealthy kingdom. She is an independent woman. She's an independent woman. I need to say that she is an independent woman. Her kingdom is traditionally identified as Ethiopia or Yemen. Ethiopia or Yemen. And you can find that in 1 Kings 10, 1 through 13, or 2 Chronicles, that's 9, 1 through 12. She controlled a very valuable trade. She controlled a very valuable trade route, right? And the particular trade that that her country dealt in would be gold, spices, and precious stones. Gold, spices, and precious stones, making her one of the most powerful women in biblical history. Making her one of the most powerful women in biblical history. Now, I need to back up a little bit to say that when we look at biblical stories, even when we see powerful women, so to speak, a lot of times they are in passing just to get to, right, the male story. And so even with the Queen of Sheba, her story is told, but it is conjunction with Solomon, the king of Solomon. So the writers intended for us to know about Solomon and his wisdom, and so we get a little bit about the Queen of Sheba. I need to also say that the one who tells the story will always be the hero of the story. The one who tells the story, the one who controls the narrative, the one who finances the story will be the hero or will dictate who the hero is. The Bible, the biblical story, the biblical text, right, is a patriarchal story, right? It is a male dominated storyline, right? It is a male dominated storyline. That's why we have a lot of women in passing, and there are a lot of unnamed women. But we know that the woman is heavily involved, even when you look at the genealogies, because you could not have all of the begats unless there was a woman. And so when we look at this story, we want to understand that Queen of Sheba was a wealthy ruler of a wealthy kingdom, that she controlled a very valuable trade route, which makes her a powerful woman. We need to also understand that her story emphasizes the historical roles of Black women as rulers, as strategists, and nation builders. Let's say that again, that her story emphasizes to us tonight that Black women's historical roles as rulers, as strategists, and nation builders. So even though there's just a snippet of what we see about the Queen of Sheba, and even other women, we need to understand that Black women, women of color, have always been a part of the biblical story. We've always been a part of the biblical story. We've always had historical roles as rulers, as strategists, and nation builders. What else do we need to know about the Queen of Sheba? What else do we need to know about the Queen of Sheba? We need to know that she sought wisdom and knowledge. She sought wisdom and knowledge. This is really important for me. This is really makes brings me joy that she saw wisdom and knowledge. She was a critical thinker. She was intellectual. Not only was she wealthy, not only was she influential, but she was an intellectual. She traveled a great distance to test King Solomon's wisdom, right? And she had deep and challenging questions. Can I tell you tonight that as women, as Black women, as women of faith, we should have challenging questions. We should test the knowledge. We should not just be taking what people say and it is just the gospel, right? We can ask questions. And as a womanist, as a self-identified womanist, I am a critical thinker, and I want to engage in intellectual and critical conversations, to have questions, to not just take things on face value. This is, God doesn't even require that of us to say that God said it, that settles it, and that's enough. No, we can ask questions. So she traveled a long way, great distances, to get to ask Solomon. And it was not in this time, because Solomon was considered a wise person. It was not uncommon for royalty and other monarchs to travel to where he was, to ask him questions. And so we don't have the questions that she asked, or some call them riddles. We don't have those, but the text tells us that she had some deep and challenging questions. And I understand that many times our leaders do not want to engage in us asking questions. They don't want us to ask questions. And when you can't ask, a person doesn't want you to ask questions, it is because they want to dictate and control the narrative. They want to dictate and control the narrative. So she invested in knowledge. She invested in knowledge. It cost her to travel, right? She put something in it. Now, I just need to say this right here, is that many times we don't want to invest in learning. We don't want to invest in knowledge. We say it's too much. We don't want to go to school. We just want somebody to tell it to us, right? To tell it to us. But she valued this so much that she invested in the knowledge that she wanted to acquire. So she valued intellectual growth, discernment, and truth seeking. She demonstrated wisdom is a source of power. And we're going to find out that she didn't want to just have this power, this wisdom for herself, but she was a ruler. She had people over her. She had a whole kingdom, right? And so perhaps some of these questions that she asked was, how to expand, right? How to grow, how to be a better ruler. Whatever it is, we're going to find out that she didn't stay there, but she went back home. So what her story highlights is Black women's historical pursuit of knowledge, leadership, and spiritual depth. Knowledge, leadership, and spiritual depth. Depth. Not just shallow or surface. Not just shallow or surface, but she had a pursuit of knowledge, leadership, and spiritual depth. So if you're just joining me by way of Facebook, TikTok, or YouTube, I just want to set the room again, as they say, to say that I am Dr. Sherry L. Jackson, and you have joined the second intensive session of our 4 weeks, as we are talking about 4 historical women, ancient historical women of color. And tonight we are talking about the Queen of Sheba. So if you have your comments, I'm sorry, comments seem like I have lost my feet, so just 1 minute here. All right. So we are back here. So what else do we need to know about the Queen of Sheba? What else do we need to know about the Queen of Sheba? We need to know that she was engaged, she was diplomatic, and she was strategic. She was diplomatic and she was strategic. Now, one of the things that is always said is that women can't lead because, or they should not be leading because, they are too emotional, and all of these things. They too touchy-feely. But we see that the Queen of Sheba was diplomatic and strategic. She was diplomatic and strategic. She was engaged in diplomacy, not only verifying Solomon's wisdom, but also establishing political and economic alliances. She didn't just go to get information. She wasn't going just to see what it is that Solomon knew, but she was strategic in forming alliances for the betterment of her kingdom. For the betterment of her kingdom. Right? Too often we are told that we can't work together, that Black women can't work together. Right? We are told that you aren't to trust another one, right? But we find out that the Queen of Sheba was strategic. She had a plan, right? She had a plan. She understood that it was bigger than her. So yes, she wanted Solomon's wisdom. She wanted to verify that Solomon was who the people said he was, or he even claimed to be. She wanted to form political and economic alliances. She brought lavish gifts to Solomon. She didn't come empty-handed. She came with something in her hand to show him that her nation was prosperous, that she had something going, that she was not just no anybody, right? She came with her stuff in her hand. She brought gifts to Solomon to showcase her nation's prosperity and her own strategic acumen. And so for me, she represents, the Queen of Sheba represents women's ability to navigate leadership and influence in male-dominated spaces. I need us to hear that tonight. We're talking about ancient women of color that we find in our sacred text. And the Queen of Sheba is not just found in the Hebrew Bible, right? The Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, but she's also found in Islamic literature, right? She's also found in, so we're saying the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, and also Islamic literature. But what she did is, or what she does is to show us how to navigate leadership, negotiation, and influence in a male-dominated space. Be sure that it's almost like we, especially Black people and Black women, that you have to go over and beyond just to be seen. Thank you, Dr. Stacy. That we have to go over and beyond just to be seen, just to be taken serious by mediocre people. I never forgot when I was a newspaper editor, my editor who was over me would the executive editor would always tell me, you seem to always, go over. Where did you get that from? Because I was taught that as a Black person and a Black woman, we always have to do more just to be taken serious. And then sometimes we are still not taken serious. So what she does is she shows us that there are ways to navigate patriarchy. There are ways to show up in male dominated spaces. So what else do we know about the Queen of Sheba? We also know that she praised God, the God of Israel. Now, she was not a Jew, right? She comes from a religious background that there were many gods. She comes from an African area, right? So she is not a follower of Yahweh, right? But she recognized and honored the divine wisdom. Now, this wisdom, I'm not talking about Solomon. I'm talking about Sophia, right? Sophia. If you have not heard that term, Sophia is the personification of wisdom. Is the personification of wisdom. But she praised the God of Israel after witnessing Solomon's wisdom, after going through and listening to what Solomon had to say. She praised the God of Israel for the wisdom that Solomon had, because truly he didn't get this by himself. The wealth that he had, he did not get it by himself, right? So we also could learn that her acknowledgement of God's role in Solomon's success demonstrates spiritual insight, humility, and reverence for divine wisdom. So what does this say to us? That the Queen of Sheba's recognition of the divine wisdom shows us or mirrors that Black women's deep spiritual roots and their commitment to honoring God in all aspects of their lives. Black women are the most religious, spiritual women ever. Even with the ways that women are often treated in religious spaces, we still have deep spiritual roots. We stick with it regardless, right? Because in many ways we recognize that it's bigger than humans. That is bigger than humans. What else can we learn about the Queen of Sheba? We can also learn that she left a lasting legacy. That she left a lasting legacy. Now, remember at the beginning, I told you that many believe that her whole story is a folklore, right? It's a legend. It's not real. But then there are other traditions that claim that she had a child with Solomon, giving a rise to Ethiopia's and Solomon, that dynasty, Solomon's dynasty in the Ethiopia world. I don't know this, right? I haven't done a lot of study in this area. But even so, if this is the case, that she left a legacy, which positioned her as a mother of a royal lineage, a figure of national and spiritual importance. So, if indeed she had a child with Solomon, right? If indeed she had a child with Solomon, then Jesus comes through, right? Because remember, Solomon is tied to David, and the prophecy said that the branch will rise up out of David's line, which means that for Christians, right? For Christians, not our Jewish siblings, but Christians, that Jesus comes through this line. So that will make the Queen of Sheba Jesus's grandma, if you want to say. Either way, her story, hearing about this woman, a Black woman's influence, her critical thinking, her intellect, her leadership, gives us something to model after, to follow after. So, what can the Queen of Sheba teach us? What is it that the Queen of Sheba can teach us? The Queen of Sheba can teach us that Black women are leaders and decision makers. That Black women are leaders and decision makers. She was not a side character. Even though there are only a few verses in First Kings and First Chronicles, she was not a side character. She was a ruler in her own right, exercising power, wisdom, and diplomacy. Her story challenges stereotypes that limit Black women's leadership potential, and it affirms their historical greatness. She was not a side character. She was not just somebody just in passing. She was a ruler. She was a powerful woman. She was filled with wisdom and diplomacy. What else can we learn from the Queen of Sheba? That there is power in intellectual curiosity. There is power in intellectual curiosity. There is power in knowledge and wanting knowledge. I just have to keep saying this because so often we don't feel that we can ask the questions, especially in our religious spaces. Because we've been conditioned that we are being out of our places, especially as little girls, that you're being womanish, that you wanted to know more than you should. That you should just be seen and not heard. Right? You should be silent. But I want to challenge us tonight to ask the questions. That being womanish is not bad. I am a proud womanist. I have many questions, and even before I even knew what womanism is, and womanist theology and those things, and we'll get more into those things in later sessions. But I always had a question. I'm a retired journalist. I got a question. You're not just gonna tell me anything. I got a question. It's like, why? Well, the sky is blue. Well, why is the sky blue? Right? So, and especially as women of faith, we've been taught that we should not be asking questions. That we should not, that people give a bad name to being seminary trained or getting biblical degrees or more knowledge. That people say that it takes away the Holy Ghost and your anointing. But can I tell you that that burning and learning go together? Can I tell you that burning and learning, they go together? Ask the questions. Black women have always sought knowledge, truth, and divine understanding. Push back on something. If it doesn't sound just right, push back on it. Ask questions. The Queen of Sheba's story reinforces that wisdom and faith are not separate, that learning and burning go together. They're deeply connected. And it is a powerful message for Black women trying to navigate faith and leadership. What else can we learn about her? Or what else can she teach us? That Black women can be economically and politically strong. Now, we found that out, right, over the last year. We've always known that. But many times, even when other people don't take us seriously or do not listen to us, right? When we have the antidote, when we have the medicine, when we have the answers, people don't want to listen to us. But I want to emphasize that the Queen of Sheba story challenges us to understand the economic and political influence that we have. As a successful ruler and trader, the Queen of Sheba represents the economic power and resourcefulness of Black women, both historically and today. She reminds Black women that their skills, intelligence, and resources can shape nations. That skills, intelligence, and resources can shape nations. That we have the skills. Black women are not only we're the most religious, but we're also the most educated, which therein is a problem, right? We want to remember these things. What else can we learn? What else can she teach us? She can teach us that Black women should embrace their power and dignity. The Queen of Sheba's story teaches that Black women are not just supporters. We're not just put here to be helpmates. We're not just put here to be side characters, even though many of the biblical stories are shaped that way. Because remember, I told you the biblical story is told from a male's perspective. It is told from a male perspective, which means that our stories are often side stories, and when they are told to prop up a male, but it's not God's design. The Queen of Sheba story teaches that Black women are not just supporters, but we are originators, rulers, and seekers of truth. We are originators. We are made in the image of God. God has placed on the inside of us gifts, skills, abilities, experiences, knowledge. The Queen of Sheba can teach us, or she shows us as a symbol of excellence, intellect, and faith, inspiring Black women to walk boldly in their God-given purpose. So what are the final thoughts about the Queen of Sheba? What are the final thoughts about the Queen of Sheba? The Queen of Sheba is a reminder that Black women have always been powerful, wise, and influential. Her story calls Black women to embrace their leadership, that seek divine wisdom, and recognize their historical and spiritual legacy as queens, as thinkers, as game changers. We're powerful, we're wise, and influential. We are powerful, we're wise, and influential. So, where do we go from here? What's next? What's next? What's next is next week on the third installment, we'll be talking about the Samaritan woman. The Samaritan woman. So in preparation for next week, let's go to John 4. So we had 2 Old Testament, 2 Hebrew Bible women, right? And the next 2 will deal with New Testament women. So we'll look at next week the woman at the well, or the Samaritan woman, and then the final week we will look at the Syrophoenician woman. The Syrophoenician woman. That's what we'll do next week. So it has been my joy to bring this to you. Again, if this is your first time joining me, you're coming by TikTok, make sure that you follow me so that you will be able to know when I'm coming on. And then if you want to go get more, follow me at my website at www.sherryljackson.com. www.sherryljackson.com. That's all tonight. May all be well with your day.